Dog's giving me the look.
Boom. Hey, Greg, how's it going today?
Good. How you doing? Well rested, back from vacation, ready to rock and roll.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks for doing that show while you were on vacation last week. That was great.
No problem. It was good to get out of the sun for a minute, baking in the heat.
Where were you again?
Maine.
Oh, yeah.
It's a state in the upper northeast.
Yep. It's the,
for those out of the country.
Of the
yeah.
states, right? It's a very
great state. It's a huge state, huge. But very nice. Lots of nice beaches and nice people. So good time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. So WeaverRadio 8 launch. Did you get a lot inundated with support requests at all, or from your end, did it go pretty smooth?
Yeah, pretty smooth. People who have been publishing with it. Had one person who had issues with RapidWeaver, not Chili Dog. So I think they're working through RapidWeaver support with that. It's been pretty quiet over here. How about you?
Yeah, everything's been pretty flawless, actually, in terms of my products and working with WeaverRadio 8. I don't think I've had a single issue where people have had, issues with anything with WeaverRadio 8, which kind of makes sense because, really, it's the same version of Htaccess, right? So I wouldn't expect it to behave any differently in WeaverRadio 8. So, everything was really smooth. And all in all, even outside of my stuff, I think the launch was definitely a huge success, right? So, yeah. And on Friday, we had the most epic hangout I've ever had. Like, it was pretty amazing. I was pretty blown away. I didn't even know what to do. So we had over 100 people try to attend. I hit the 100-person limit on a hangout. So I don't even know how many people couldn't get in. It was pretty nuts. We had 100 people, and it was pretty much all of them stayed for. I pretty much went on for like 2 hours on WeaverRadio 8, and almost everybody stayed the entire time. And if someone left, like someone came in and filled in their spot. Like it was like over at 100 people for like almost 2 hours straight. It was nuts.
Yeah, I'm hoping to bounce in there this Friday, but I got to see where my schedule is. So
cool. Hopefully
I'll make an appearance. Say hi.
Sweet. I don't know if we'll get the same turnout, obviously, this weekend, but this Friday.
Oh.
But
well, if I show up, I'm sure.
Hey, there we go. There we go. Tonight I have to I recorded it, so I have to edit that and try to get that on. I told everyone to get that out this week, and tomorrow's Thursday. Like, where did this week go? I don't even know, man. Whew.
I know. I spent a little work time on the vacation.
Oh, yeah?
Fluffing up some Form Plus features, and I'm like, okay, gotta get it out. And it's already Wednesday. I'm like, it's like 99% there. You just got to do the last bit. It's that last touch. Just got to find the time. So
you were reading actual books on vacation? Wow.
No, I was working on Forms Plus.
Forms Plus. I thought you said book time. Okay, got it. Sorry.
No. I got sick on vacation, so that's what my vacation was full of, being sick.
Boy.
Yeah, the baby got sick, then got everybody else sick, so
that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. So, chasing after her, still a good time though, but he spent it sick. Yeah.
So in today's episode, Greg, we're going to be talking about Htaccess, right? And we thought we'd pick one of the little features in WeaverRadio 8 and kind of elaborate on that. So WeaverRadio 8 has the new ability to edit your Htaccess file on your server. So we thought we'd do a show on Htaccess files and all the cool, wicked stuff you could do with them.
Joe, what's an Htaccess file?
Oh, Greg, that is a fantastic question. So everyone, an Htaccess file is it's a text file that lives at the very root of your website. Well, most of the time it's at the root of your website, right? And its name is it has to start with a Htaccess. And essentially, you do have to run an Apache web server. And I assume most everyone here that's listening to this is probably running an Apache web server. And it is a file specific for Apache that allows you, basically gives your web server rules that it follows before processing basically every single request. Right. And it could be everything from redirects to security to how to serve up a particular file type. Right. We're going to be going into all the nitty gritty, throughout the show. But did I get everything right, Greg?
I'll elaborate on two things. One,
okay.
The dot makes it a hidden file. So if you're viewing it in your FTP application or in the control panel file manager, you have to make sure view hidden files is enabled so that you can actually see it. Otherwise, you may not see it. If it doesn't exist, if it's not there, it is safe to create it. Just name it .htaccess. I would not recommend using any kind of standard text editor to edit this. I wouldn't use TextEdit. I would use an application like BBEdit, which has a free version now, VS Code, something like that to edit it, because TextEdit on the Mac will add special characters which will break your site. So don't do that. The other point is the htaccess is a runtime configuration change for the server. So it lets you modify certain things on your site at runtime, which means when it's live on the fly, right? So every request gets all these rules and things applied, and it looks at the actual request and makes modifications. So we could do a ton of stuff like Joe is, and hopefully you'll learn a few tricks that you didn't know that you can actually do with these very powerful files.
Sweet. Yes. Good point on the dot. It makes it a hidden file. So like if you were to download that file to your Mac, all of a sudden you look for it in Finder, you will not see it. Right. So yeah. Yep. Good trick up there. And hey, Greg, a little birdie told me that you're loving VS Code now, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm ashamed, but
Hey, I love it too. I love it too.
Yeah, I haven't tried to open a couple 100 MB file in it yet, like I can with BBEdit. Yep. So we'll see after that.
It will not perform like it does in BBEdit, but everything else about it is great.
Okay, all right, good to know.
Okay, why don't you kick us off? What's your first tip that you kind of want to go over in with htaccess files?
Oh, that's a tough one. Do you do optimization? Do you do security? We'll start with something that isn't obvious. We'll do security. So
I knew you were going to pick that. You love your security. I
do.
Knew it.
I do. Optimization is easy. Security is hard.
I have to say, okay, to get Total CMS to work properly, like the current version on Chili, I had to work hard to get it to work on Chili Dog, man. That was hard. And I have to say version 2, it is working beautifully. So,
cool.
While I hackle you about that, it's good because it makes all of us better, right?
Yes. And, I could tell you it's, obviously working together makes that easier so we can, figure out how to get it done right. But there's a lot of places where you go and you won't have that kind of support, and everything will be 10 times harder.
I have to say part of my, we're going off on a little tangent, but it's okay. Part of my the reason I completely started from scratch with Total CMS is to properly work with the high security standards of Chili Dog hosting, because I was not happy with the workarounds that I had to implement for version 1 to get it working. And so I completely scrapped it all. That's why I started from scratch. And we're good to go. So anyway,
yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you'll pay 10 times more later if you screw it up. All you need is that customer email that their site got hacked.
No, I understand. Yep, totally.
So, yeah.
So I ruined your flow. Go for it. Security, htaccess.
Oh, yes. htaccess. So you could do some nifty things with htaccess. One such thing is blocking what I like to call bad bots or bad actors, people who are scanning your site, making malicious requests. This happens all the time. I'm not even exaggerating, but especially with WordPress sites there's tons of known WordPress vulnerabilities, for instance, and they'll submit contact forms with, populate the contact form data and submit that automatically like a robot. They'll try to access files on your site as if it was like a WordPress site and try to, hack stuff. They'll submit stuff to PHP scripts and, see what happens. So, I usually put in my Htaccess it's called it's published by Perishable Press, or who, I forget. I'm sorry. It's the Press 6G firewall. It's not really a firewall per se in the traditional sense, but it blocks bad bots and a good collection of bad requests and bad posts to your site. So instantly you're filtering out all this bad traffic from showing up in your logs and scanning your site, getting spammed and all that junk. So that's my first tip.
Sorry, my wife walked by. She's making me laugh. That's not cool. I'm live on a podcast, and my wife's making me laugh. So, bad actors, totally agree. I never want Dolph Lundgren visiting my website at all.
Bad pun.
Now, you didn't hear it, but I had the boom-ching in there as well. I had to throw that in there. I had that timed.
Okay. Yeah, that timed? Okay. I think that was more of a wah.
Okay, so yes, good things. Your firewall, that's actually really interesting. Everyone, I'll make sure we throw that link in the show notes. So if you want to check out that. Yeah. So my next thing, let's see. I'm going to do sort of I'm going to start off with the most obvious thing that a lot of users are going to want to use Htaccess files for. And that is
caching or redirects. Oh, I was trying to. Oh, okay.
Redirects.
Okay. All right.
I think that's probably the most common thing that people are going to use it for. I already help a lot of people out with that because of Total CMS, because we do redirects for. A perfect example is in a blog. You're going to have by default in a blog. You're going to have %permalink equals, and then my blog ID, my blog post ID. Well, a lot of times you're going to want to change that so that it doesn't have the %permalink equals or $ID equals or so on and so forth. So what you're going to want is you're going to want it to be like, mywebsite.com/blog/my blog post, right? So it looks pretty. Okay. So inside the Htaccess file, you can set up these redirect rules, and where it'll if you pass /blog/ and then the permalink, you can map that to be %permalink equals in the background, so that whenever the web server sees that, it'll remap it. Okay. Now that's actually creating like something called rewrite rules, and that's a little bit complex. There are simpler redirects. An example of that is every Friday, I have a hangout, and the URL to attend to that hangout is weavers.space/hangout. Okay. Now, obviously, that URL, it redirects to a Zoom URL, and I can never remember the Zoom URL because it's zoom.us/ and some random numbers. I have no clue what that is, right? But essentially, what the rewrite rule in the Htaccess file allows me to do is whenever anybody goes to weavers.space/hangout, it automatically redirects the user to zoom.us/ complicated URL, right? So we could do this for all kinds of stuff, and I do it all the time. Like if I want to recommend a particular app or a particular product a lot. What I'll do is a lot of times if you ever see a link like joeworkman.net/link/something, okay, like for instance, I don't like JPEG Mini, okay, that's an app that I recommend to a lot of people. So if you go to joeworkman.net/link/JPEG Mini, that is a link to JPEG Mini on the App Store, right? So I don't need to have any of that the URL memorized, but I just know it because I've created these redirects in my Htaccess file. right? So there's a quick synopsis of how I use redirects inside Htaccess files. Oh, and another thing, really, really important that you could use redirects for is if you're changing a website domain. Okay, so like for example, next month I'm going to be redirecting everything off joerogan.net and onto weavers.space, and I'm going to be doing that through Htaccess files, right, and redirects. So whenever anyone, because I'm moving all that content from joerogan.net over to WeaverSpace, I want to make sure that any links that are all over the web that are linking to my products get properly redirected to the new website, right? So that allows users and everything, all the links that are already out there on the web to automatically get redirect over to the new product pages on the new website.
Cool.
Anything to add there for redirects?
Yeah. One thing, actually, two things. One is now if you have a control panel provider like Chili Dog, you log into your control panel. There's a redirect section, and the redirect section is a interface on top of that. Same kind of Htaccess rules. So it'll modify and change the Htaccess for you, so you can do it either way. It's the same thing. And two, in the case of what Joe's talking about for the redirects, Joe's doing a permanent redirect, not a temporary redirect. So he's moving all of his domain content. He's basically telling search engines that joeworkman.net no longer exists in the SEO world, and all that stuff that was associated with that domain should now be carried over to this new domain. If he didn't want to do that and he only wanted it to say, hey, I need to use WeaverSpace temporarily, he would use a temporary redirect. And that SEO juice, kind of typically what they refer to it as for some reason, wouldn't be carried over, but he's doing a permanent redirect. So hopefully most of that SEO juice gets carried over to the new domain.
Yep. Yeah. I expect it takes some sort of hit once I move over. And then over time,
you get like 80% or so,
yeah,
I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Cool. What's your next tip?
I actually have a few good ones, and I just sent it to you for this, and I can't believe I totally forgot about it. But one of the most common requests I get is how to force SSL, how to force people to the secure version of your site. So if you visit HTTP, chili.hosting.com, and you get redirected to https.chili.hosting.com, you do that with, guess what? Htaccess file. So I'll send you a link for the show notes, but that's probably, those kind of redirects are extremely important, especially now with the new Chrome security warnings and those kind of things. And here's another security topic, right? But you could do other things. I'll mention some other ones that aren't security related, Joe, is www versus non-www. So,
ooh, now that's a huge debate. We should have a show on that.
Oh boy. Do you go with the bare domain, or do you go with the www?
Traditionally I've gone with the bare domain, right? But I've read enough where it doesn't hurt to go with the www because of a cookieless domain and all that jazz. Because if you set a cookie on the raw domain, like for instance joeworkman.net, all the cookies, if you set a cookie or something like that on joeworkman.net, the bare joeworkman.net, that cookie carries over to all www and subdomains. But that's not the case if you were to do it on a www domain. And there were a couple other things that I saw. There was a website, maybe I should find it and link to it, that kind of says, say new, I don't remember, something about the benefits of using www. I did a whole podcast episode years ago on my original podcast on why we should ditch www. So I don't know. I don't really think it matters all that much, but what's your take?
Pick one and stick with it.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, pick one and stick with it. I agree.
Yeah. So there you go. Because that also leads into duplicate home pages, because Google will, search engines will see those two sites as two different sites. So you're splitting your SEO juice between them. So again, pick one, stick with it.
Yeah, a lot of people, you'll have 4 different websites. And what I mean, that's HTTP my domain, HTTP www my domain, and then HTTPS counterparts of both of those, right? You want to make sure that if anyone visits any 4 of those, it redirects to the proper one, right? So either you have to choose HTTPS. I recommend that. And then whether or not it's www or no www, you take your pick, right? But make sure you pick one. So it doesn't matter if anyone goes to any 4 of those combinations, it always redirects to one, right? So, yeah.
In the end, there will be only one.
Ha! Yes. There may be only one.
That's right. And the last one, 404s. If you set your 404 error document in your Htaccess file. So if you want a 404 page on your site, that's where you do that. And I have shared a link with Joe. Hopefully he'll share it in the show notes for some 404 stuff.
Cool. Great. Yeah. So your Weaver, Greg has a bunch of great tips for this stuff that he just went over on his weaver.tips website. So that's a really cool website. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's got a bunch of really cool GIFs and whatnot that shows you how to do things really quickly and simply. So yeah.
Yes. That I need to update. I know I need to update.
Next up, let's see. I'm going to do something that's maybe a little more esoteric. Now, I'd say I don't really use Htaccess file for this much anymore, but because I have Cloudflare, and Cloudflare kind of does all this for you as well. So I kind of set all that up in Cloudflare. I don't want to get off on the Cloudflare hitch right now, so I'm not going to dive into that. But
you could do it. You could do it for the content between Cloudflare and your server.
Yes, that is true. So what I do is for caching of content. Okay, so inside your Htaccess file, you can specify how long particular assets or resources on your website are cached. So for instance, and you could specify to the exact type of file as well. So you could say like CSS files are, cached for 1 month if you want, right? And JSON files are cached for 0 seconds, which means never cache them, right? Because a lot of times those tend to be application responses and stuff like that. So you want those to be always never cached, okay? But then things like HTML files, you want those to be, potentially 0 as well, because so that way, anytime you make a change in your HTML file, it's immediately seen in the browser, right? But things maybe like CSS or images and things like that, you could probably do 1 month per se, so that obviously you want your browsers to cache stuff because that's going to make subsequent page loads and visits for your users faster. Now I know for us as RapidWeaver users, that can sometimes be a pain in the rear, right? Because browsers like to cache stuff and we like to make changes and we want to see it now, right? So we kind of do have to ingrain in our brains Option Command E in Safari. I don't know what that is in Chrome or Firefox, right? But Option Command E empties your cache. And sometimes I find even that sometimes doesn't really empty everything. And I have to quit Safari, restart it. Then I see everything properly, right? But caching, all in all, it's a great thing. You should be doing it because it will make your websites faster for users. I know sometimes it could be a heartache on us RapidWeaver users because as we're making changes to our sites, sometimes we don't think about caching and we think that publishing didn't work when it's just the browser caching stuff. So how do we get around that? You just got to ingrain it in your head that, this could be a cache thing, right? Any thoughts there, Greg?
2 things. I don't know if that key combination works without having developer mode turned on in Safari.
Oh, good point. Yes. Enable developer tools, which all of you RapidWeaver users should be doing anyway. I recommend that. Developer tools.
And 2, I think Command-Shift-R will reload the page without cache. Is that correct?
Does it? I don't know. I've heard that, but I've never had always perfect success with that. So I always just emptied cache myself.
I guess different finger reflexes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if one doesn't work, try the other one.
Yes.
That all sounds good.
Cool. What's your next tip?
Oh, my next Htaccess tip. Well, let's see. We have talked about caching. I think that's like all I have. I know you have a couple of, you have a website to test for testing. You can maybe talk about that. You took my kind of last one, the caching stuff.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Stole your thunder.
You did. But, and I know, you share the link in the show notes. I just want to tell people who may be listening that do actually use Chili Dog is before this show, when we discussed the topics, Joe shared his link, and it's actually a link that I actually already used. So Chili Dog users is enabled and sits in front of, so everybody's using that code that Joe will share automatically already. There's no need to add it to your Htaccess file and go through the work and trouble.
So what he's talking about is there is a standard, something called HTML5 boilerplate. It's just kind of like a open standard out there that has boilerplate recommendations for various things like CSS and what a blank HTML file should look like. And one of the things it recommends is here's a sample starter for an Htaccess file. And it's what I use for all my new sites that I do. I take that boilerplate Htaccess file, I plop it in there, and then I modify it from there, right? So that boilerplate Htaccess file is what Greg is saying that Chili Dog already uses that. So it uses that boilerplate Htaccess file for all new websites regardless. So yeah, good call.
Yes.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
I do have one thing. I haven't seen this for a while, but there are some hosts out there that have this issue. And that is if you want to self-host videos, there are some times where a host server will not know how to serve up an MP4 file because it doesn't know that type of file. It doesn't know the mem type. So a lot of times what I have to do is I have to give someone just a couple lines to add to your Htaccess file that says all files with an MP4 extension are an MPEG-4 video file. Or if someone wants to serve like an OGG file, an OGV file, like there are some hosts out there, non-quality hosts that don't serve up video files properly with the proper mem type. And when they serve up the MP4 file, sometimes it'll be like an image mem type, and then the video player goes, I can't play an image file, and then videos don't play, and then I end up losing 2 days going, why the hell is this not working? And then realizing, oh, it's the mem type is getting served up not properly by the web server. So something to think about.
Yeah, you have to send me those cases and I'll add it to the Weaver tips.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So
yeah, I think we kind of went over everything. I mean, those are the main uses that I could think of. Oh, obviously, I know it's part of the boilerplate, and I think any web server probably has this, but the most basic thing you could do in Htaccess is turn off directory access, right? So that if someone just types in the URL and then maybe removes a file, it doesn't list. By default, a web server will list out all the files in a directory if you just type that directory. You want to turn that off, right? You don't want to allow that at all, obviously, because with that enabled, people can just browse through your web server and see all your files, and you definitely don't want to do that. So, big no. You don't want to have directory access, and that's one of the first things any Htaccess file will have. Yeah.
So I actually disabled the indexes. They're called indexes, options indexes, by default. So that's why people may see this like 403 error when they visit the page. It's because I don't allow directory listings for privacy and security. You don't, as you mentioned, you don't want people to be able to see the contents of your site and be able to navigate around and see everything without it being a real page.
Yep. And you can also disable access to specific files as well. Like I actually had a case today where a user had a CSV file that he wanted to load onto the web page for users that were logged in. He was using SiteLock to authenticate users, and but he wanted to make sure that if anyone, while that CSV file was on a public directory in his web server, he wanted to make sure people couldn't access it if they figured out the URL to that CSV file, right? So what he did is in the Htaccess file, he made it so that that CSV file could not be loaded externally even if you knew the URL, from a web browser. And then he was using, I don't even know if it was Gridiron or Power Grid to, then display that CSV file on the web page. So perfect use case if you want to disable, linking to a specific file to block users from seeing that particular file.
Cool. Yeah. Good tip. What other fun little tricks can we do?
That was it in all of my notes. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a really good collection. I think anybody who's never touched an Htaccess file or is curious of all the things you can do with it, I think that gives you a pretty good rundown of, all things I do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that Htaccess boilerplate that we're talking about earlier, that actually has a ton of other stuff, and it's actually really well commented. And it fully explains every single section and it explains the syntax and why they're doing it, why they recommend this and that. So definitely, like, it has a section I haven't even played around, like clickjacking. I don't even know what clickjacking is, but apparently you can do that. And there's stuff like, like another thing, like if you want to disable the ability to have your website display in an iframe, right? You can do that with an Htaccess file as well. I don't know exactly how to do that off the top of my head, but I know it's possible, and it's inside this boilerplate file. So, stuff like that is useful. So, if you want to see all the other stuff that you could do, peruse through that boilerplate file that we're going to link to in the show notes. It has a lot of really cool stuff, and it explains everything pretty well. And then, obviously, like I said, Greg has his Weaver tip site that has a bunch of great tips, and yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got.
Cool. Yeah, I think the only other thing I have now that you mentioned is preventing hotlinking of images.
There you go.
Yeah. So, do you want to explain what a hotlinking of image is, or shall I?
Go for it. I won't steal your thunder.
Oh, okay. So, a hotlinking of an image would be someone sees this cool image that you posted on your website, and they're like, I want that on my website. So they copy the URL of that to that image, and then they embed it on their site. So now your copyrighted, trademarked image or something like that is being hosted. You're hosting it. It's using up your bandwidth. It's embedded on somebody else's site. They're using it. And so that's hotlinking. So you can use your Htaccess file to prevent others from stealing your content.
Awesome sauce.
Yes. Cloudflare does have that feature too. Just an FYI for Cloudflare customers. It is one of the tabs at the top when you click on your site, I believe. Mm-hmm. Or it's called the Scrape Shield. That's what it's under, I think.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's a cool little trick. Maybe I'll put that in a Weaver tip as well.
Nice one.
Yes, I'm already looking at the directory index. Option index one. So
sweet. Actually, I did get 2 requests this week from users. At least they actually asked, right, instead of just doing it. But they're like, "Oh, can I use this image on my?" No, I'm like, "No, you can't use my image. I paid for that icon to be designed, and you cannot have it on your website."
Right.
So yeah, cool. I think that wraps it up, Greg, for this week.
Yes, great job.
Yep. Sweet. It was a good show. Maybe, actually, I did get 2 requests this week from people to do a show on Cloudflare. So maybe next week we could do a show on Cloudflare. I know we've talked about it here and there on like almost every episode, but maybe we just did a dedicated episode on Cloudflare so that we can be happy with everybody.
Sounds like a date.
Sweet.
You bring the wine, I'll bring the cheese.
Cool, Greg. Where can everybody find you on the webs?
Chili Dog Software, Chili Dog Hosting, and at Barshard on Twitter.
Sweet. I am at Joe Workman everywhere. And as always, everybody, if you are enjoying this show, go ahead and head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review and give us some love. If you have any feedback for us, send an email over to feedback@weaverradio.com. You can also post on Weaver Space. We have a community there for the Weaver Radio users and listeners. Go ahead and post there if you like as well and interact with fellow listeners. You can listen to all of our show archives on weaverradio.com, and you can subscribe to us on everywhere you listen. Oh, Greg, I didn't even ask you permission to this. We now also have every single episode on YouTube. Right? I uploaded every single episode to YouTube so that we can, if you don't have a podcast player and you want to listen to Weaver Radio, you might be listening to us right now on YouTube. Or for our hearing impaired users, which is, I was actually getting some requests from them. They were requesting that we upload our podcast to YouTube so that they can read our podcasts. So, Greg, some of our listeners can't hear your beautiful voice, but they can sure read it.
I'm not sure how well it translates, to be honest.
So cool, Greg. You take care.
Right.
You have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care. Ciao.
Bye.